Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
Oh, well, just like his life was stopped short, that clip just stopped short. I don't know what that's about. But happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody. Happy Martin Luther King Day. I have to tell you that the three great laws of the Civil Rights Movement, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, all happened because of that movement. All happened because the man who knew he was going to die before his death, I mean, if Jesus came back himself, he would say, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but, mine eyes have seen the glory, which is what he said there. And we would do the same thing today, I believe. I believe that people would actually, I can't even imagine what Donald Trump would be tweeting about Martin Luther King right now. Can you? Like, I don't even want to think about what nicknames he would come up with. Do you? I think a couple of weather forecasters used it recently by accident. If you don't know, just go look that up. But, Trump had 0 events today on his calendar. I mean, 0 events today on his calendar. I would say of all days, but really this is the day that you would guess that, Trump would most likely ignore a commemoration. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem to me the civil rights type. And now with this Supreme Court, with the Kavanaugh, with the, Squee guy and, and the court, I mean, we could be facing a Supreme Court that decides that they're going to chip away until, at these laws until there's absolutely nothing left. Because look what they did to the Voting Rights Act, before Scalia died. Rest in peace. There's no more racism in America. No more. And, over the weekend, we saw that there is racism. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of hatred out there. It's really kind of sad. The whole thing was kind of sad. I mean, you had these, I don't even know, we have these people around here, the black Hebrews that wear, let me tell you something. These guys are, they have no business calling themselves religious because they are nasty. And they are, they are the first to attack people based on the color of their skin. They're, and then you have the Catholic boys wearing the Make America Great Again hats. What the hell was that about? I mean, and they go, well, our chaperone told us that we could, your chaperone should have told you that if you're at a Right to Life rally, that maybe Donald Trump isn't your guy, knowing that he knocks people up and pays them. It's so and then you had a Native American man, a Native American elder of the Omaha tribe, Nathan Phillips, I believe was his name, a Vietnam veteran, he says, and he just tried to diffuse it the best way he could. And it was just so obvious that there's so much division in this country, that just playing a draw. See, we need clothes. We need music. If we're going to have a real movement, this is what's missing. What's missing for a real movement, a real civil rights revelation, a real, ending of hostilities is we need music. We need clothing. We need, a culture that actually shows who we are and what we stand for, just like they have those stupid MAGA hats. A Randi Rhodes t-shirt might be a good thing. A Justice Democrats t-shirt, I've seen those. Those are good, right? Way to go, Cenk. I've seen that. But who's going to write the music for that? It's so sad. It's just so sad. And if Martin Luther King were alive today, I just can't even imagine how Trump would be attacking him. I can't. And so what happened this morning was, all the news media were noting that Trump's schedule was completely empty today. It was just full of executive time so he could watch TV all day. And I guess he was annoyed that the cable shows weren't going, full steam because of Martin Luther King Day, and they were giving, some respect for the fact that this man is responsible for the three great laws of the civil rights movement that the Supreme Court is about to chip away at. You know what I mean? And so all of a sudden, he must have seen these references of him ignoring the day, because all of a sudden, him and Mike Pence made this stealth appearance at the King Monument on the Washington Mall. And he had to be told, like, what to do and where to put the it looked like a bunch of, Tatalia and the five families at Vito Corleone's funeral. That's what it looked like. I mean, it was like mob bosses putting in an appearance at the funeral of the big rival. It looked like for the world to see this, it would look like, Trump was just checking to make sure Martin Luther King Jr. was still dead. That's what it looked like this morning. It's so sad. He had nothing on his calendar. Not a damn thing. And this after crazy-ass Rudy Rama. Did you see this week? I don't know if you watched Sunday shows or what your plans were yesterday. I mean, I know playoffs and, oh, yay, everybody, the Patriots. Yeah. So Brett's right. Brett says, at the beginning of the season, he always says, well, when people ask him who's going to win the Super Bowl, he says the Patriots because there's a pretty good chance he'll be right.
Death, taxes, and the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
It's unbelievable. And Tom Brady, isn't he elderly now? I mean, how is this happening? How is this happening? Fourth. 40. He's 40? How many Super Bowls would this be for him? 9?
This is number 9 out of 18 seasons.
9. Number 9. Number 9. It's very anticlimactic, the whole thing. The whole thing. And I'm getting bronchitis. I'm coming down with something. I'm in a mood. I'm just in a mood. I just cannot believe that the president of the United States, forget it. This is who he is. This is what he does. And now he's taking hostages. He made this, look, Friday was crazy. It was just nuts. After we left, about 7:30 on Friday night, you remember everybody was saying, if true, that BuzzFeed story was an impeachable offense. Remember, if true. And we were all couching it like that. You know why? Because journalists understand that other media organizations are going to go try to confirm bombshell reporting, and nobody could do it. And so that's why everybody was reporting to you on Friday, if true, if true, if true. Even we said, if true, if true, if true, because nobody was sure about that story, because you always see stories being corroborated by other media outlets. And this one wasn't. By 7:30 Friday night, Mueller had put out some sort of a statement, and it wasn't a specific statement. It was a very parsed, very ambiguous statement about specific references in the BuzzFeed story not being accurate. And we didn't know, and nobody knows, and CNN doesn't know, and the Washington Post doesn't know, and the New York Times doesn't know, and New York Magazine doesn't know, and Vanity Fair doesn't know, and Wall Street Journal doesn't know. Nobody knows. None of the major media organizations and these awesome reporters that work on our behalf every single freaking day that people take for granted and that Trump calls the enemy of the American people. They were working overtime trying to, Maggie Haberman, Tom Hamburger, Devlin, what's his name? Patrick Devlin. I mean, everybody was trying. Everybody, Ken Delaney and all these people trying their very level best to confirm the story. And they couldn't confirm the story. But then Rudy, idiot boy, on Sunday gets on TV and pretty much confirms what they were reporting. And that is that Michael Cohen did talk to Donald Trump ahead of his congressional testimony, and that they had a joint defense agreement, and they were sharing information, including what Michael Cohen was going to testify to in front of Congress, and that Michael Cohen was going to tell a lie. Now, whether Trump ordered him to do it, or Trump condoned it, or Trump acknowledged it, or Trump heard it and didn't stop it, it's no different than if Trump, said to him, I want you to lie. It's no different. And you know how you know that? Because Richard Nixon's articles of impeachment said exactly that Richard Nixon condoned and went along with and, knew. And so I don't even understand why this story is in dispute, but it is. It's in dispute. And I will go through it. I'll play you that the BuzzFeed reporters say that they have reconfirmed their story. And at the heart of that BuzzFeed story is the fact that Michael Cohen talked to Donald Trump about his testimony ahead of his testimony to Congress, and that he informed Donald Trump what he was going to testify to, and Donald Trump didn't tell him not to do it because it was a lie. He condoned it. He didn't say, don't do that. That's not true. We were involved in the Trump Tower Moscow right up until the day we were elected. So I don't get what the big contretemps is. Somebody will have to tell me what the big beef with BuzzFeed really is, because I'm not sure what was so incredibly wrong, except to say that they did open their article with 2 law enforcement officials. Now, for all we know, people are saying that the 2 law enforcement officials that BuzzFeed is quoting were part of Mueller's team. But for all we know, they could have been part of Southern District of New York. We don't know, because Southern District of New York is who prosecuted Michael Cohen. And what was Michael Cohen prosecuted for? For lying to Congress about this. About when the Trump Tower Moscow ended. So I don't get it. But, listen, here's the good news. The good news is we have even more amazing candidates, more people announcing for president. We're going to have like a 2021 people to choose from in our primaries. And today, as you know, I'm sure Kamala Harris announced that Kamala, I'm going to have to learn how to say her name now that she's presidential material. But Kamala Harris announced today that she was definitely running for president.
We're here now with Senator Kamala Harris. She's a Democrat from California, first elected to the Senate in 2016 after 20 years as a prosecutor, including stints as the district attorney for San Francisco and attorney general of California.
And Senator Harris has also been laying the groundwork for a run for the White House. It is great to have you with us on this special holiday. Do you have an announcement you'd like to make?
I am running for president of the United States.
Well,
and I'm very excited about it.
You mentioned 20 years. We mentioned 20 years as a prosecutor. If you win,
yes,
you're going to be commander-in-chief.
Yes.
What qualifies you to be commander-in-chief?
Well, first of all, let me just say I love my country. I love my country. And this is a moment in time that I feel a sense of responsibility to stand up and fight for the best of who we are. And that fight will always include, as one of the highest priorities, our national security. And thinking about it in a way that we understand that we must be smart, we must understand the power that we have, the strength that we have. That is about military power, it is about diplomatic power, it is about the power that we have in terms of what has been, until recently, our moral authority in the world and our ability to work with our allies. I am a career prosecutor, as you said. My entire career has been focused on keeping people safe. It is probably one of the things that motivates me more than anything else. And when I look at this moment in time, I know that the American people deserve to have somebody who is going to fight for them, who is going to see them, who will hear them, who will care about them, who will be concerned about their experience and put them in front of self-interest.
Well, that she's very, very persuasive, I will say. And I love the idea of somebody who really does value law and order. There are some issues with how she prosecuted certain cases. I expect the attackers to attack. In fact, I saw the attackers attacking this morning. And that's, that's what makes politics, political. But a black woman, I think that's the prescription for what ails us. I really do. I have so much faith in black women that I like this announcement this morning. I do. And, she's going to be ripped apart, but I can imagine her taking on Trump. I can. I mean, she took on Bill Barr the other day and exposed the fact that he doesn't know nothing, not even the Presidential Records Act. That was stunning. She's good at it.
Things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee. You've been looking at the Russia investigation.
Right.
Have you seen any evidence that President Trump has committed an impeachable offense?
I cannot talk about the evidence that I've received in the Senate Intelligence Committee, but I will say that there is no question that Bob Mueller is conducting an investigation with the highest level of integrity. He is clearly taking the job very seriously. There have already been 33 indictments, and it is incumbent on the United States Congress to do everything in our power to ensure that his investigation is whole and will be complete without any interference.
It sounds like you don't think William Barr, the president's nominee for Attorney General, can oversee it in a fair manner.
Well, you're right. And during the course of the questioning of him, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, I expressed great concern, and I am very concerned that he was unwilling to agree that if the career people in the Department of Justice say he has a conflict and that he should recuse himself, he wasn't willing to agree that he would do that. We cannot... Back to your point about my career, my entire career has been focused on our system of justice. It is one of the hallmarks of what gives us strength as a democracy. And it becomes weak when people interfere with that system for political purpose. And no one in particular right now, when there are so many Americans that are distrustful of their government and its leaders and institutions, no one should give the American public any reason to question their integrity or the integrity of our system of justice. Yeah, absolutely.
So she is a law and order type of person. She is a prosecutor. She was a prosecutor for many, many years. She was also a district attorney. And she's a senator, a junior senator from California. Of course, Dianne Feinstein is the senior senator from California. Now she's running for president. And I kind of like this. I like all the competition. We're going to end up with about 21 people in our primary. And she's unbelievably good at being a senator. Let me just remind you that when she was questioning Bill Barr, who she was just asked about, she was fierce. She actually asked him about the Presidential Records Act with regard to the fact that the president spoke to Vladimir Putin in private and that the notes that were taken should have been preserved as part of the Presidential Records Act. And instead, Donald Trump took those notes from the interpreter and destroyed them or just hid them. We don't know which it is. And when she asked Bill Barr about that and the presidential, he said, well, maybe I knew what it was at one time. She goes, you don't know what it is? Remember that?
So you were the Attorney General, obviously, under President George H.W. Bush and in the Reagan White House, a senior policy advisor. So I'm going to assume that you are familiar with the Presidential Records Act. And my question is, in the context of a Washington Post report that the president took possession of an interpreter's notes documenting the president's meeting with the Russian President Putin in 2017.
Who does that?
And the question then is, does that violate the Presidential Records Act?
Your initial assumption, I'm afraid, was wrong. I'm not familiar with that act.
You're not familiar
at some time I was, but I really don't know what it says.
You don't know what it says?
No.
Okay.
At some point,
the
I was
president to keep documents and not destroy them, essentially.
At one point, I knew what it said, but I'm not familiar with it right now.
Oh, my God, that was so painful. It was just such evidence of being at the bottom of the barrel of finding people to be stuff in the Trump administration and the stuff that he wants to be as Attorney General of the United States. That means to be in charge of the Civil Rights Division. I mean, it's heinous. It's really bad. She's been amazing. She's just been fierce and dogged about this. And, when asked about this ridiculousness over the shutting of the government so he could get his stupid wall, everybody's very clear that Trump said that he would take the mantle. He was proud to shut down the government. Now he's blaming somebody else. The corruption of this president, the inability for this president to keep his word makes him somebody no one can work with. That's the sad truth. I mean, he changes his mind all the time. He had a deal last year for the full amount of the wall. The wall's not $5.6 billion. The wall is $25 billion, and that's the best price. The worst price is $80 billion. The 5.6 is a down payment on a bunch of fencing, okay? So this is just a big... And what does he do? He takes hostages. He took the DACA kids hostage. He's taken the people who are here under temporary protected status. Those are mostly people from Haiti that are here temporarily protected, who came here because of earthquakes and hurricanes and the inability to, live where they live. And so, I mean, it's just so amazing. And it's Donald Trump himself who took away the DACA protections and said, you know, Obama violated the Constitution and put it in the court. The court disagrees with Donald Trump. The court has extended DACA protection at least until 2020 as it makes its way to the Supremes, who may not hear it. And if they don't hear it, then the lower court prevails, and that means DACA kids cannot be deported, that they do have protection under our law. TPS, same thing. He revoked TPS status. Now he's saying, I'll give it back to you. This is a crazy game he's playing, and the people that he's playing with are literally being fed at food pantries, and these people are in charge of America's national security. They're the very Border Patrol agents he's talking about, the Customs agents he's talking about, the TSA agents he's talking about. Food stamps are now in question because not that they couldn't issue them, that people have their EBT cards. Stores were required to up their license. You need a license to use an EBT card, as a method of payment, and stores had to submit their applications, and then the government shut down, and some stores didn't get their applications approved, and so now they have to turn away people who are buying their groceries for them and their children with EBT cards. They have to turn them away. The hostage taking has got to stop. It has got to stop, because if America, and I mean all Americans, give Donald Trump his stupid wall in exchange for taking all these people hostage, you're talking about at least 2, maybe 3 million people that Trump has taken hostage. Where are these 2-3 million people? 800,000 federal employees, 1.3 million DACA kids, and another 700,000 under temporary protected status. You're talking about 3 million hostages this president has taken. And if you give a bully what he wants, he's going to do it again. He's going to do it again. Every time he doesn't get his way, he will know that he can threaten the livelihoods of the people, the very people that protect us, the very people that are educating themselves to better themselves, to be an amazing part of our American fabric, the very people who work their tails off and break no laws because they're trying to get a path to citizenship, and he is the one that revoked even the smallest of protections that they enjoyed so that they could pursue education and jobs. It's a very sick situation, I have to say. It's just very twisted. And most people understand that he made this crisis. He owns this crisis. This is something of his own making.
Vice President's basic point, Democrats are ignoring a crisis, and says the president really is considering declaring a national emergency to go around Congress. Your response?
It's just not true. It's just simply not true. There was a bipartisan effort out of the United States Senate and the United States Congress to pass a funding of the government, and the president is holding it up because of his vanity project, which is this wall, at taxpayers' expense and at the expense of hundreds of thousands of workers who are working every day without being paid. So it's just simply not true. It's an emergency of his own creating.
But if he declares this national emergency, is there anything you can do to stop him?
Well, I think that there's no question that we will litigate, and there will be litigation. These are moments in our country where the beauty of the design of our democracy is being tested. And if you think about our democracy or the republic as being a tabletop standing on 4 legs, there are 3 independent co-equal branches of government and a free and independent press. And so what is happening over and over again in the last 2 years is those other branches of government and the courts and the press will put the checks and balances on the outrageous conduct of this administration. If he declares an emergency, I think that we will see, again, the checks and balances kick in, and in particular through the courts.
Yeah, and she's right, and that's why he keeps on, lying to the press, asking for TV time, saying, like it's a game show. I mean, this is what he did on Friday night. He said he'd have an announcement on Saturday. He's going to have a big announcement on Saturday. And, people are sitting there going, oh, my God, is he going to declare a national emergency? What is he going to do? Is he going to take all this power under? And, the president is too lazy to declare a national emergency. And I'm sure he knows that his people have counseled him that if he declared a national emergency, he still wouldn't be able to use the military to build his stupid wall. Okay, and he also he doesn't know what he's doing, and he wouldn't know how to do, and so he keeps on teasing like it's a game show. Like it's a freaking game show. Stay tuned tomorrow to see what happens to all these federal workers. Stay tuned and see what happens to all these DACA kids. Stay tuned and see what happens to temporary protected status relief. Stay tuned and see what happens to your border. I mean, it's the way he approaches this is so haphazard. It's so willy-nilly. It's so... it's like on a whim. He hasn't thought out anything. Now he makes this stupid announcement on Saturday. And what's really sick about it is he's been saying he's going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Since he started running for president back in 2015, it's hard to believe. It's like 4 years of this mess. Isn't that hard to believe? No wonder we're all exhausted. No wonder my physical fitness is at an all-time low. No wonder I'm taking 10-year-old amoxicillin. Does anybody know if it'll still work? I swear, I found a prescription from like 2013 in my drawer of amoxicillin from the last time I was sick. And I said, you know what? I'll just take that. But honestly, I mean, he made this stupid announcement. And he scares everybody with, these claims of rape and crime and drugs and all this stuff. And none of the statistics bear him out. Every statistic you look at, one of the safest big cities on the border, well, the safest big city on the border is El Paso. Other cities on the border are the safest places ever. I mean, he just gets up and says stuff while he's taking hostages. It's a very sick thing to watch. And it's also sad that he teases the press this way. The last time he asked for prime time, they said okay, and he duped them because they thought that, the networks thought that he was going to make news. That's what he told them. Donald Trump told ABC, NBC, CBS, all the news networks, CNN, all the news networks, NBC, that he was going to make news. And everybody thought he was going to declare a national emergency. Well, he played them. And that's why he had to do this on a Saturday afternoon, because they wouldn't give him prime time. And of course, it was disappointing.
Thousands of children are being exploited by ruthless coyotes.
Oh, my God.
And vicious cartels and gangs. 1 in 3 women is sexually assaulted.
Oh, my God.
On the dangerous journey north. In fact, many loving mothers give their young daughters birth control pills for the long journey up to the United States.
Okay, where does he get this madness? Where does he get these sick, dark, twisted, evil, ugly views of people fleeing a violent and corrupt government? I mean, where does he get these views? This had to be Stephen Miller's work, okay? This had to be like the work of a white supremacist to write down those words that mothers are giving them. That's why they come in a caravan. In numbers, they can be safe. They don't need to pay coyotes. They don't need to pay the cartels. They come in a caravan because that's how you can protect yourself. He's just such a sick freak. He's just so twisted. He's always thinking about pedophilia. He's always thinking about child molestation. It's like he obsesses about it. It's almost like when you're pointing your finger at somebody, remember 3 fingers are pointing back at you kind of thing. It's just so creepy.
Because they know they may be raped or sexually accosted or assaulted. Nearly 50 migrants a day are being referred for urgent medical care.
Not for rape. He's such a sick man. Oh, my God. What is this talk? What is this talk? It's just bizarre. All right, so here's his proposal, in case you missed it.
The proposal I will outline today is based on, first and foremost, on input from our border agents and Homeland Security professionals. And professionals they are.
Oh, please.
They know what they're doing.
All right, let's just discuss this one little point before we play the rest of this ridiculous proposal, which is to give back what he took away. Because he took away DACA. He took away TPS status, right? So that's what he's going to announce. I'm going to give back what I took away. The hostages I took, you can now have the hostages back, some of them. In 2015, when he came down the escalator with Melania and started calling Mexicans rapists and murderers and drug dealers and all that stuff, He did not have the input of the Department of Homeland Security or the professionals in national security.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. It is a compassionate response to the ongoing tragedy on our southern border. In recent weeks, we have met with large numbers of Democrat lawmakers to hear their ideas and suggestions. By incorporating the priorities of rank-and-file Democrats in our plan, we hope they will offer their enthusiastic support.
Go away.
And I think many will. This is a common-sense compromise both parties should embrace. The radical left can never control our borders. I will never let it happen. Walls are not immoral. In fact, they are the opposite of immoral because they will save many lives and stop drugs from pouring into our country.
Oh, my God.
Our plan includes the following.
Thank you.
$800 million in urgent humanitarian assistance. $805 million for drug detection technology to help secure our ports of entry. An additional 2,750 border agents and law enforcement professionals. 75 new immigration judge teams to reduce the court backlog of, believe it or not, almost 900,000 cases. However, the whole concept of having lengthy trials for anyone who sets one foot in our country unlawfully must be changed by Congress.
Oh, God.
It is unsustainable. It is ridiculous.
You're ridiculous.
Few places in the world would even consider such an impossible nightmare.
We're America.
Our plan includes critical measures to protect migrant children from exploitation and abuse. This includes a new system to allow Central American minors to apply for asylum in their home countries and reform to promote family reunification for unaccompanied children, thousands of whom wind up on our border doorstep. To physically secure our border, the plan includes $5.7 billion for a strategic deployment of physical barriers or a wall.
He's not giving up on the stupid wall that Mexico was going to pay for the wall. He's such a terrible negotiator. All right, let me just go over the proposal. First of all, the Democratic proposal actually that they passed last week, they've been passing bills all last week, an array of bills all last week. All last week. They packaged the 6 funding bills together. Then they packaged bills separately for each government agency to reopen. And in the Democratic proposal, there was exactly what he said there. It was a little less. It was $524 million for infrastructure to help the ports of entry where the drugs come in, to have more infrastructure, more technical ability, dogs, more personnel, et cetera, $563 million over and above what they've already offered him, which was 1.6 last year and 1.6 this year, which is a total of almost 3.2 billion plus another billion for these two things here. So he's up to about $5 billion, right, that the Democrats are voting for. But they want the money not spent on a stupid wall. They want, the money to go to technology, to drones, to personnel, to dogs, to canine groups. They want the money on the ports of entry. They want $563 million for 75 immigration judges who adjudicate the claims of migrants who make asylum claims at the border. And last year, they appropriated money that he hasn't spent, and they want him to deploy that money for drones and technology. It's just so unbelievable. These are all Democratic ideas. These are everything that was in the bills that the Democrats proposed over and over and over again. And if you go back to last year, the Democrats agreed, Chuck Schumer literally agreed in the Senate, and the House refused to take it up. But Chuck Schumer literally agreed to give the president $25 billion for his stupid border wall in exchange for a path to citizenship for the DACA kids. And Trump turned the money down. And here's what he's saying he will give on the DACA kids.
Furthermore, in order to build the trust and goodwill necessary to begin real immigration reform, there are two more elements to my plan. Number one is 3 years of legislative relief for 700,000 DACA recipients brought here unlawfully by their parents at a young age many years ago. This extension will give them access to work permits, Social Security numbers, and protection from deportation, most importantly.
Okay, so let's go over this. All right, the three things that he has mentioned so far: the money for the judges, the money for the technology at the border, the money for the infrastructure at the legal ports of entry to combat drugs, which come through the legal ports of entry in vehicles. That is all something the Democrats have put in their bills that they have passed out of the House. These are bills that Mitch McConnell will not put on the Senate floor. You have one guy standing in the way. Because Mitch McConnell, well, why would I waste my time? Why would I introduce legislation that the president won't sign? I'll tell you why. Because if the House and the Senate pass it, like you did before, with 96 votes, and the president refuses to sign it, a pocket veto occurs. And you have enough votes to override any veto from the president. So shut up, Mitch. Just stop lying already. Just shut up. I can't introduce anything that the Yes, you can. And these are the things that, and when the Senate approved $25 billion for the president last year, the House wouldn't take it up. This is such a game. And now they're holding hostage all these. Now, here's what happened with DACA. In September of 2017, the Trump administration tried to end DACA. Jeff Sessions, the then Attorney General, called DACA recipients illegal aliens and falsely claimed that that program had caused a huge surge at the border. It wasn't true. And then in August of 2018, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to fully reinstate DACA. So the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to bypass the federal appeals court. And we don't know if the Supreme Court's going to even hear this case, but he ended DACA. The ability to apply for asylum sounds like a great idea. You know why? It was. The ability to apply for asylum in your home country while you're still there is something that was available to people in Guatemala and El Salvador and other Yemen, a lot of crazy places. You could apply. Trump is the one who ended it. He ended that program. It's called CAM, if you want to look it up. He stopped people from not coming here, but trying to apply for asylum while they were still in their home countries. He stopped that. That's why there's all these cases pending at the border, because he took away their ability to file the paperwork and get some sort of a credible fear interview in their home country to screen them to see if what they were saying was really a credible fear. He stopped that. And the temporary protected status, he also undid that. So those are the three things he's saying he's now for. He's the one that took those people hostage. It's so sick.
Secondly, our proposal provides a 3-year extension of temporary protected status, or TPS. This means that 300,000 immigrants whose protected status is facing expiration will now have 3 more years of certainty so that Congress can work on a larger immigration deal, which...
You know, he took away the temporary protected status of these 300,000 immigrants. He took that away. He canceled the program. He canceled it. So this is how he negotiates in good faith. He takes stuff away, and then he says, we really need to do these things. I'll give them back to you, but I want $5.7 billion for a wall. Or 800,000 federal workers can work for nothing. And, screw the contractors, too.
Everybody wants, Republicans and Democrats.
Then why did you
and
take
our
it away?
farmers and vineyards won't be affected because lawful and regulated entry into our country will be easy and consistent.
Okay, so he's still going to allow for slave labor to come to this country. He's still going to allow for the ag community to get their, their aliens, to get their, pickers. And then once they're here, Mr. President, what's the plan? What's the plan if they overstay their visa, which is why we have so many people here without proper documents? And most of them are from Canada. But the big problem America has with undocumented people is overstaying the visa. This man has no idea what he's talking about. And, Chuck Schumer summed it up in less than 20 seconds.
It was the president who single-handedly took away DACA and TPS protections in the first place.
Thank you.
Offering some of those protections that he took away back in exchange for the wall is not a compromise, but hostage-taking.
It is. It is absolutely hostage-taking. And I'll tell you, there's a congressman named Malinowski. This guy was so articulate about all this. It was, just pretty amazing.
The president made a proposal on Saturday. He says, give me my $5.7 billion for the border wall, and I will agree to an extension of 3 years of protection for Dreamers and people with temporary protected status. What do you say to that deal?
Well, let me come back to that. But remember, we had a deal in December.
Yeah.
When we thought the president was asking for $1.6 billion for border security, and we gave it to him, Republicans and Democrats. And now we're dealing with basically a hostage situation with 800,000 dedicated, patriotic American public servants held hostage by this president. And that's the most difficult and delicate thing that you can possibly deal with, because you fear that if you don't negotiate with a hostage taker, he may just be nuts enough to kill the hostages. But if you do, there'll be no end to the hostage taking.
Right.
And so, like any good hostage negotiators, what we are insisting on is first release some hostages, reopen the federal government at least for a month so that we can negotiate without that gun to our heads. And at that point, things could get interesting.
You don't even think you should talk about this proposal until the government's reopened?
Well, we can talk, I'm sure we'll talk about it here, but I don't think real negotiations can begin, because this is really not about border security right now. This is about whether it is right to shut down the entire United States government when you don't get your way from the United States Congress, and we think that's wrong.
Absolutely correct, sir.
That's Tom Malinowski. He is a Democratic congressman from New Jersey, and he is absolutely right. You have a nuts hostage take. It's like Dog Day Afternoon, except in Dog Day Afternoon, Pacino's character was actually advocating for something meaningful as he took hostages. This is so sick. This is so twisted. So he's offering to give back the hostages he took. He's offering to give back the ability to apply for asylum in your home country, which he undid. DACA protection, which he undid. Temporary protected worker status, which he undid. This is crazy. Open the damn government. Open the government. People who are screening passengers for bombs and guns and illegal things, they are getting their food at a food pantry.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Today is the 28th day into this shutdown. They, the TSA, are still coming to work and not getting paid. And our morale is now at an all-time low.
I am a fellow veteran myself, and it's just going through a real hard time right now. You know, a lot of stress, a lot of mental stress, uncertainty of what's going to happen next. You know, our family stress too. It's not an easy job to do altogether, but we do it. You know, we serve our country and we do it proud.
We still have to pay our bills. We still have to raise our children, and we still have to take care of our health care. And we shouldn't be in the middle of this. These politicians are professionals at doing what they do, and they should get out there and do it because that's what we're paying them for, and we want them to pay us too.
We are tired of being pawns in this battle. I have been part of shutdowns in the federal government since 1990. It has never been this bad. This is a big problem. You have people right now downstairs working, processing people to their flights without pay. They cannot sign up for unemployment benefits. Our furloughed employees can, but the people coming to go to work and not get paid cannot get unemployment benefits because under the Pennsylvania statute, you have to be ready, willing, and able to take another job and to work. So they are in a catch-22 here.
It's going to get worse as the time goes on. We keep hoping, and we just got to keep fighting and keep going.
And the millions of Americans who are suffering because they don't have access to the critical federal agencies that serve them, we say it's time to reopen this government.
Yes! Open this government. The hashtag is call the vote. It's Mitch McConnell that is standing in the way of everybody and everything. And it's a lie. What he's saying about the reason why he won't call the vote, it's all a lie. Everything about what he says is a lie. The Senate passed on a voice vote, 96-2, a piece of legislation that the House has voted on and passed. And if Mitch McConnell, because we changed Congresses, would reintroduce the same legislation, the mirror image legislation that the House passed, the same exact thing that got 96 votes, then the legislation would go to Donald Trump's desk. And Donald Trump would either veto it, sign it, or stick it in his pocket. And either way, 96 votes and a majority of the House, we have enough votes to override his veto. So why doesn't Mitch McConnell do it? Because Mitch McConnell is the handmaid of Donald Trump, and one only has to wonder why. What is it that Donald Trump has on Mitch McConnell, or what is it that Mitch McConnell is trying to protect himself from? I mean, we know his wife works at the Department of Transportation. She's a cabinet member, but it can't be about a simple little cabinet position, can it? No, I think Mitch McConnell took a whole bunch of Russian money, plus some NRA money that was laundered Russian money. I don't know what his deal is, but Mitch McConnell is the impediment to getting rid of this government shutdown. He is the person that is standing in the way. You got states that are just, reeling. You got stores that can't accept food stamps.
With the government shutdown now in its 27th day, many federal programs have been affected, including food stamps. So far, there is no major lapse in benefits used by nearly 39 million people each month.
Right.
That's because of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It found a way to pay SNAP benefits, as they are called, earlier than normal. February benefits awarded through a debit-style card used at stores are being paid out this week. Several states, including California and Florida, are warning users to be careful and make sure they manage to make the money last longer.
Jesus.
For 2,500 retailers, the problem is already here. That's because those stores needed to renew a license for the Electronic Benefit Transfer, or EBT, debit card program, and they failed to meet a deadline before the shutdown. Those renewals, required every 5 years, are on hold. Sarah Jackson is an employee at one store in northern Arkansas.
We have been completely unable to take any SNAP EBT payments. Grocery stores need a license to process EBT payments, and ours expired and was unable to be renewed on schedule because of the government shutdown. Because of an argument about a wall, I have to look people in the eyes every day and tell them they can't pay for their food, for their children's food.
Sarah Jackson in Arkansas.
Arkansas. I thought these were the forgotten men. I thought this was his base. I thought that these were the rural people that, he, wasn't going to forget to remember. I can't believe this. This man is he is a danger to every living, breathing thing. Every living, breathing thing. It's just over a stupid wall that he said Mexico would pay. This man is the worst negotiator in the history of negotiators, and now maybe you understand why all his businesses went bankrupt. He doesn't have a long game. He doesn't have a vision. He doesn't have the ability to, plan for the future, save for the future, make decisions that benefit all Americans or most Americans. No. Everything about him is all about him. Everything for him is all about a win for him, no matter who gets hurt. That's what, this man has stiff lawyers, contractors, employees, you name it. He has just refused to pay people. And this is no different. This is no different. This is exactly who he is. And you know what? I'll tell you what should happen. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell needs to bring a bill to the floor and allow amendments. He needs to bring that same damn bill that he had 96 votes on and allow amendments. And then after the amendment process is finished, the Senate votes. And then the House puts together its own bill. They put in a permanent solution to DACA and TPS. They put a pathway to citizenship in their bill, and they put in all this money for border security, not a wall. And they also put in an automatic continuing resolution in case of another funding lapse. This is Donald Trump's third shutdown. This government has been run on continuing resolutions with a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. Because this president's word means nothing. And everything's been, piecemealed. The two bills need to go to conference. The government is reopened. And the House and Senate negotiate a resolution to the differences in their bills. Period. End of story. Open the government. This is ridiculous. And look at the states most affected by the shutdown.
We are 1 month into this shutdown, and Americans across the country are feeling the impact beyond just the Capital Beltway. Outside of Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Delaware, the states with the highest proportion of federal workers impacted by the shutdown are South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Alaska. Federal employees in these states primarily work for interior, agricultural, and health and human services. And it's folks like these across the country who've already gone more than a month without a paycheck who could start to have a tough time making ends meet. In fact, according to the real estate site Zillow, this month alone, unpaid federal workers owe $438 million in mortgage and rent payments. And of the workers impacted, almost 111,000 make less than $50,000 per year.
Jesus, less than $50,000. Half of America makes less than $50,000 a year. Half of America. Now, if you're in the other half, that's shocking to you. This president has done nothing to stop this income inequality. Nothing. He gave all the tax breaks to the very wealthy at the top, and it's going to trickle down. Can I just remind you, nothing that trickles is ever good. This is just amazing. And now you have, we're a month into a shutdown. You got flight attendants that are saying they're holding us hostage too.
As the shutdown continues, the entire industry will begin to unravel. That letter was sent on January 10th. Sarah, have you heard anything about those concerns you have about this trickle down?
No, we haven't. And, this has got to be resolved. So we have a growing concern for safety and security here. We know all too well what it means when you have gaps in security. The TSA was created after 9/11 when I lost my friends. Our country shut down. Airplanes stopped flying. And we had a massive economic impact from that. We lost over 100,000 aviation jobs. Many people were hurt, and it led to the economic turndown that hurt so many people and had so many people out of work. There is no one that this isn't going to touch. And when you're standing outside and you're suddenly hit with a thunderstorm, you do not wait and negotiate in that thunderstorm and wait for lightning to strike. You get out of the way, and then you talk about where you're going to go next. They need to reopen the government, stop holding all of us hostage, and putting our safety and security in jeopardy.
Dude, open the government. This is ridiculous. All right. Ginny in California.
Hi, Randy. It's Judy.
Oh, hi, Judy. How are you?
Good. I feel so sorry for these people. I think there should be some type of a congressional amendment so that if the government shuts down, it's the Congress that lose their salary. You know, they're the one that shut the government down. They should lose their salary. Their salary should be on hold until things get up and running again.
Well, they should include themselves in these measures, but you know, look, only a third of our government is shut down, and look at all the contretemps. Look at all the mess. Okay, and all of this is because Mexico will not pay for his stupid wall, and now he needs you to pay. And he's holding he's got 3 million people's lives dangling, and he's a hostage taker, and you can't reward him for taking hostages because he'll do it over and over again. But what we should include in this legislation is that the next time the government goes unfunded, there's a continuing resolution that funds the government automatically at the current level.
I agree. I wanted to tell you, too, that I went to a book signing with Kamala Harris in Los Angeles a week ago, and I got a copy of her book for you, so don't buy it. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's so awesome.
Buddy. And, you know, one of the things that she said, she was really good, and I'm kind of like you where I'm just going to hear everybody out and not really preemptively make any kind of choices for candidates.
How can we make choices? We haven't even heard a debate yet. We haven't even heard anybody's position on anything we care about. I mean, is she for Medicare for all? Is what's yeah? I mean, we haven't heard anything from anybody. Joe Biden is still, is he for Medicare for all? What's her name? Tulsi Gabbard, is she for Medicare? I mean, we haven't heard anything from anybody, and they're like, oh, let's attack them all. No, let's listen to them all, because anything is better than him.
One thing she said, I was the highest attorney in the biggest state in this nation. I've dealt with drug traffickers and international criminals, and no wall is ever going to stop them. That's just ridiculous.
Well, it's so interesting because over the weekend I saw an article from Voice of America, who does unbelievable reporting, and they're not getting paid either. But it was a report that where there are walls, they made all these arrests over the weekend for people who were tunneling under the walls. And, it's so funny because Trump went to Border Patrol, and Border Patrol had a presentation that they delivered to Donald Trump, and the woman from Border Patrol that did the presentation said, see, over here, sir, this is where the tunneling is. This is the tunnels. A wall doesn't stop that.
Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Steve, first to you. You were there at the White House covering the president's speech on Saturday, but you're working unpaid, I believe. Many staffers at Voice of America have either been furloughed or are working unpaid because Voice of America is funded by the U.S. government. I got to ask you what it's like as a reporter to actually be affected by the shutdown. I know you're not speaking for anybody else at VOA, but what is this like to be a victim of the shutdown while covering the shutdown?
It is a bit unusual, of course, to be covering a topic that so personally affects you, but just like any other topic that I would be covering, you put that aside, you go ahead, you do your job, and it's not affecting the way that I do my job, actually, except for the days that I'm furloughed. Other days I'm unpaid here at the White House, swapping out with one of my colleagues.
That is disgusting. And what's so interesting is that over the weekend, VOA actually had a report from the border where arrests were being made, because people, where there was a wall, where there is a wall, where the wall is currently standing, the people were tunneling under the. He's such a a fantastical excuse for a president. I mean, it's just like, who would have ever thought that this could actually be America? Who could? And the State Department also, they called BS on Pompeo because remember the story from last week where Nancy Pelosi was going on a military flight to Afghanistan. She's going to stop in Brussels for the pilot to eat something and to sleep, and then they were going to go on to Afghanistan on a fact-finding mission. And in Brussels, they were going to stop and discuss, with the NATO allies, that the United States of America is a staunch member of NATO. We invented NATO, and we're not going to turn our back on our NATO allies. And so she was going to go on that trip. And the president, tit for tat, because she had disinvited him from the State of the Union and said, why don't you do it from the Oval Office, or you could write it, or whatever you want, but we can't guarantee your safety, which, was a little dramatic, you got to say. But then he canceled her trip to Afghanistan, and she, I'm finding out now, planned to actually, I was joking. I said, go on Expedia and somebody tell me, how much does it cost from California to Kabul? There apparently are commercial flights. And her and the CODEL, the congressional delegation, were going to take a commercial flight and go ahead on this mission. They would have been back tomorrow. But Idiot Boy had to announce that she was doing that. And so it suddenly became unsafe for her. She is next in line if Pence is impeached also. And so she couldn't. And then we find out Mike Pompeo and his wife went on a 9-country, government flight, all expense paid tour of 9 different Middle Eastern, Abu Dhabi, and, and they had a. And when they were asking him, why are you doing this in the middle of a shutdown and taking your wife? He said, my wife is a force multiplier. What? What kind of fancy language is she's a force multiplier? For what? For your potency? I don't even understand what that meant. So the State Department, they gave quotes to the newspaper. They gave quotes to Vanity Fair. And they said, quote, this is bull. And they said it. A senior State Department official messaged on Thursday to Vanity Fair, this is bullcrap, except they said it, after Trump announced that all the diplomats and the department employees at the Department of State need to return to work next week without pay. Without pay. The president wrote in this stupid letter, as a national security agency, it is imperative that the Department of State carry out its mission. And the people at the State Department said, this is the last straw. It just destroyed morale. It demonstrates a continued lack of respect for people who are committed to the national security of the country to serve his political calculation. It's like we're supposed to show up and pretend like everything is cool, work as normal. They're like, this is bullcrap. It's just, and then they talked about Mike Pompeo's wife's trip, and they said it's particular. They were particularly upset about Susan Pompeo joining Mike Pompeo while they are going without paychecks on a 9-country all expenses paid fun trip to the Middle East. One of the former U.S. ambassador told the reporter for Vanity Fair, quote, during a shutdown, it's just totally inappropriate. So they asked Mike Pompeo, why is your wife on this trip? And he says she's a force multiplier. I don't know what that means. But they said they feel taken for granted. They feel that they've been taken advantage of. Quote, what is universal is a sense that we are pawns in a bigger political dynamic. They said, after Rex Tillerson, who was completely ineffective, we lost all these career professionals. You know, everybody left because they just thought, Rex Tillerson, really the CEO of ExxonMobil? So they left, so they're already short-staffed, and now they have to go back to work with no pay. And so they said, Mike Pompeo issued a statement saying, morale is good. They understand that there are squabbles in Washington, but their mission remains, their duties continue, and they're executing them. And one person at the State Department said, sorry, Mikey, but this is BS. And he wrote that on his Facebook page. He said the shutdown has directly impacted several high-level initiatives that we were planning, and everything's being postponed, and morale is affected throughout the department. And a third and current State Department employee wrote in a text message, I can't tell you how disappointing he has been during this shutdown. Pompeo has failed. He has failed to show empathy for the staff. I was really giving him the benefit of the doubt, but someone's true colors begin to show when times are tough. The whole government. I mean, and everybody's like, oh, good, we'll get the small government. Don't you understand that we have these people doing these things for our national security? There's more to national security than being a war fighter. That is the last choice if you're smart, because that's pure hell. But diplomacy and treaties and trade agreements and pacts and securing the skies and making sure planes don't crash into each other on the runways once they land, if they should need to use a different runway than the one that they originally planned to use for some reason. Those people that do the ground stuff, they're not there. They're not there. So air traffic controllers who are working 6 days a week plus overtime with no pay can't apply for unemployment insurance because they're working for no pay as Trump stiffs them for a stupid wall that he claims is like the be-all and end-all to national security. And he didn't know anything about national security when he started running for president and came down the escalator. He just knew it was a divisive issue that would divide the country into for him and against him. And he took that bet. So sick. Diana in Pittsburgh.
Hi, Randy. How you doing?
Good.
Well, I think I kind of have an idea of how you're doing, but something has been on my mind recently, and I'm wondering, I've heard the words hostage, being bandied about and everything, and I'm totally in agreement with this. Can we call this shutdown what it is? Is it formally possible to call this extortion? And Donald Trump is an extortionist. He is inflicting harm upon Americans for his own gain, his own wall. Can we call Mitch McConnell a seditionist, a person who is holding up the process of government for his own gain? And if we can do that, what can we do to get these people out of office? Because this is one of the things we absolutely need to do.
Well, the first course of action is by these public unions, and some of them have already filed. Oh, you're driving me crazy with your breathing. I'm glad you can breathe, but don't breathe in my ear. How's that?
I'm sorry?
So the first course of action is a civil lawsuit, and a court will decide whether or not this is a real national security issue, or is this the thinnest evidence of a national security issue, and so it's extortion, and that making people work without pay is, violative of the contracts that they signed when they became government employees. So we'll find out.
Okay.
Grant in San Diego.
Hey, I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so there are
American
lawsuits
people
already, and the courts are going to have to come and weigh in, and they're going to have to say whether or not it's permissible for the government to call them into work, demand work from them, and produce nothing in exchange. And a contract is always, something for something, and it's always, you have to have a monetary amount, or else it's not a contract. So, the courts are going to have to weigh in. This is kind of basic contract law. And then the second issue is there really a national security crisis, or is this the president lying to the American people in order to take hostage?
Exactly. And the people don't even know their own power. If every TSA agent and air traffic controller didn't show up for work on Monday morning, that would end the shutdown.
Well, they feel a sense of patriotic duty. I get it. A lot of these guys are and women are ex-military, and they serve the government because, they want to do this kind of public service. And they do it in exchange for pay, just like they defend the country in exchange for pay. And the idea that they're not getting paid to secure this country's skies or to broadcast the news to the world, to the soldiers themselves on Voice of America. I mean, it's just, it's bizarre. This is just...
Yeah, but the government's not even serving them right now.
Right. Well, that's
so why
what I mean.
Do they feel
That it's so interesting. Today when I was driving into work, I was in the car and I was thinking about the Janus decision. Does everybody remember that the Janus decision was one Mr. Janus, who was part of a public employees union, who went, he was used by one of these conservative groups to get standing in the court to say that he's a public employee, but he doesn't want to pay his union dues, but he wants all the benefits of being part of a public employees union. And the last thing that Justice Kennedy ruled on was this decision. And he said, oh, yeah, you could be part of the public employees union. You don't have to pay your dues. Well, now all of a sudden, the dues money is going to go to pay the union lawyers. The public employees are going to get representation in court because they pay their dues. And this will get adjudicated. So, I mean, the whole court is just chipping away at organized labor, and the last people to go were the public employees. And this is what's left of them. And you're right, they don't know that they still have this power. And if they didn't go to work and they brought the airports to a screeching halt and it wasn't safe to fly because there was no air traffic controllers, they'd try to bring in some scabs, there's no question, but they would fail miserably. If Border Patrol would stop going to work, if Customs would stop going to the ports of entry, I mean, you would have a real display of human dignity. But like I said, I really believe we don't have the music. And we don't have the clothing, and people don't get their power anymore.
No, they don't. Look what happened in France when he thought about having.
Never mind
tax.
France. You know what today is? Today is Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and you know where he was? Why he was in Memphis the day he was killed? He was in Memphis to defend the sanitation workers.
Yeah.
So everything old is new again.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said, I couldn't even imagine what Trump would be tweeting if we had a Martin Luther King today. What would the nickname for Martin Luther King be?
Oh, Lord.
Oh,
I
right.
don't even want to think
I
about
don't either. But you see, that's when people understood their power. That's when people could be, given permission to join together. And now everyone is so divided, and this is by design.
Yeah.
And the reason,
Randy?
And the reason is because when you have the workers, the forgotten man, and the public employees, when you have them at each other's throats, and everybody's getting gypped, and everybody's in panic mode, and everybody's going to the food pantry, then nobody has time to stand up for their own self-worth.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's all by design to set us one against the other, and it's to deny us justice. And if you believe in liberty, I want you to know something. Liberty, freedom, is dependent upon justice. No justice, no freedom. Period. And this man is chipping away at justice itself. He hates the courts. He hates judges that rule against him. He hates upholding the Constitution. He takes away what the court has said belongs to the DACA kids, and that's protection. He takes away temporary protected status. He takes away the ability to file for asylum while you're still in your home country. And then he says, I'll give it all back to you if you give me my stupid wall. Is that extortion? Yes, the caller is correct, and we're going to see it in a court.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, so we had Rudy Arama this weekend. Let's deal and cope with this. This BuzzFeed story. Okay, all I can tell you is BuzzFeed is standing by their story. BuzzFeed said that they reconfirmed their story over the weekend. You turn to reporters like Woodward, like Bernstein, and you ask them, what are we to make of a story like this? These are difficult stories. And here was Woodward's, Carl Bernstein's advice.
I think it's going to take time before we fully understand what the exact truth is here in terms of the facts relating to Mr. Cohen and whether or not the president directed him to lie, and the facts regarding the kind of attribution in the story that BuzzFeed ran, in which they attribute part of it not just to sources, but also to documents that the special prosecutor has, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know where we are with this story right now. And it's gonna shake out also, perhaps, and I would hope, in Cohen's testimony coming up on the 6th, 7th, 8th of February.
Yeah. Remember, Michael Cohen is scheduled to testify on February 7th, and Donald Trump is out there threatening his father-in-law to the point where Michael Cohen has told Donnie Deutsch, who he apparently talks to every freaking day, that when he heard Donald Trump threatening his family, when he heard Donald Trump threatening other family members, he said to Donnie Deutsch, I don't know if I could testify. I'm scared for my family. That right there is witness intimidation. You don't need the BuzzFeed story. The idea that he took a translator's notes and disappeared those notes. You don't need testimony. All the fact that he lied about he had no contacts in Russia, no business deals that could happen in Russia, and now Rudy is on the TV saying, well, I think he did talk, to Russia, and the Trump Tower Moscow thing was a live deal right up until the day he was elected. Rudy also told us that, there was no campaign finance violation on the part of Michael Cohen. But Michael Cohen pled guilty to campaign finance violation and lying to Congress about the Trump Tower Moscow deal and when it ended. It didn't end until after Donald Trump was president, and then we don't even know if it ended. We don't know if it's over.
You said the president is not sure when talks ended. I'm guessing you had to answer this question in written form by Mr. Mueller.
Right. That's what we answered it.
So, right, it's your understanding it ended when? In January, as Michael Cohen incorrectly testified to? Or okay.
Well, it's our understanding that they went on throughout 2016. Weren't a lot of them, but there were conversations. Can't be sure of the exact dates, but the president can remember having conversations with him about it.
Throughout 2016.
The president also remembered. Yeah, probably could be up to as far as October, November. Our answers cover until the election. So anytime during that period, they could have talked about it. But the president's recollection of it is that the thing had petered out quite a bit.
Oh, my God.
They sent a letter of intent in. They didn't even know where to send it. They knew so little about it. They finally gotten straightened out, and then they abandoned the project. And that's about as much as he can remember of it, because, remember, 2015, 2016, he's running against 16 people for president of the United States. And I know that. I was with him for 5 months.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I have nothing to do with Russia. I don't have any jobs in Russia. I'm all over the world, but we're not involved in Russia. I have no relationship to Russia. I don't deal there. I have no businesses there. I have no loans from Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia, folks, okay? I don't have any deals in Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. I have no investments in Russia, none whatsoever. I have no dealings with Russia.
Dealings?
I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away.
What a lying sack. Oh, my God. And now Rudy's on the TV going, no. There were deals that could happen. They had a letter of intent. Michael Cohen was still negotiating. If you listen to Felix Sater, when he made the TV rounds, he said that they were talking to VTB Bank, that they were trying to secure financing in Russia for Trump Tower Moscow, and that this went on, throughout the whole entire campaign while Trump was standing there lying. And, obviously, we don't know if he ordered Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about when this deal ended, which we don't even know if it did. We don't know if it's over. But obviously, Rudy makes a very huge mistake this weekend and tells us all that Michael Cohen and Donald Trump were together on a joint defense agreement and that they were talking to each other about the testimony that Michael Cohen was going to give to Congress. Obviously, Michael Cohen lied to Congress, and the president knew what the lie was, which means he condoned the lie.
But you just acknowledged that it's possible that President Trump talked to Michael Cohen about his testimony.
Which would be perfectly normal, which the president believed was true.
So it's possible that that happened, that President Trump talked to Michael Cohen about his testimony.
I don't know if it happened or didn't happen. And it might be attorney-client privileged if it happened, where I can't acknowledge it. But I have no knowledge that he spoke to him. But I'm telling you, I wasn't there then.
So
it's not significant because the version he gave to the...
But he's convicted of, one of the things he pleaded guilty to, I believe, is lying to Congress about the Trump Tower deal.
Which time?
Well, I'm talking.
The one time he talked to Congress.
About the Trump Tower deal.
But he's pleading guilty to get a reduced sentence, which means he's saying what the prosecutor wants him to say.
But you just acknowledged that President Trump might have talked to him about his testimony.
And so what if he talked to him about it?
Is it not possible that Michael Cohen had that conversation? And I'm just asking you for what happened or what didn't happen.
It's not possible.
That President Michael Cohen left the conversation thinking, well, this is what the boss wants me to say.
Right.
The boss wants me to say.
Not possible. The guy driving this testimony was Michael Cohen.
Oh, please. You know what Rudy Giuliani did in that clip? And nobody's pointed it out, as far as I know. And I've been watching, all day Sunday, until the football. If Rudy is correct that Michael Cohen is saying what the prosecutors want him to say, he went as far as saying they probably handed him a script and they told him to read the script, and if he read the script, they would let him off. Do you know what that means? Rudy is accusing Robert Mueller of, and the Southern District of New York as well, where he was, the lead prosecutor, Rudy was, of suborning perjury. Yeah, he's saying that in order to get a deal, he had to lie. This is what Jerome Corsi is saying, too, that the prosecutors are suborning perjury. Really, Rudy, really?
This part you were the lawyer for. In his written, lawyer for Trump for. In his written answers, President Trump's written answers to special counsel Robert Mueller's questions, what did President Trump have to say about the Trump-Moscow project?
Right.
He acknowledged that they had conversations about it throughout 2015, 2016.
Through November 2016.
And,
through November.
He answered.
Right? That's what you said
he
before.
answered those questions. He answered those questions fully, and I think to the satisfaction of the special counsel. So I'm not at all concerned about that. He gave a full and complete answer to it. I can't share the whole thing with you, but I can share the conclusion, which is he had conversations with Michael Cohen, but it was Michael Cohen driving the project. As, of course, anybody who's being fair-minded would understand. He was running, I emphasize, for President of the United States.
So what?
Tied up 18 hours a day with that.
Oh, right.
If he could devote a minute a day to this, it'd be a lot. So it would be a minute here, a minute there, a minute here. Your recollection of that is not going to be that strong.
So let me ask you...
The guy running the deal is going to remember it.
Yeah.
And I'm emphasizing the following. Do not think that just because he's pleading guilty to something, Michael Cohen's telling the truth. He's got every reason to say what the prosecutor wants him to say.
But
Corsi, they're offering Corsi a deal right now. If he says what they want him to say, he gets probation.
They're offering Corsi. How do you know this? That they're offering Corsi?
Because he's suing over it.
Okay.
I have the documents. It was leaked to me. I have the documents. They gave him a script. If he reads from the script, no jail. If he doesn't read from the script, he gets maybe 5 years in jail. What's the temptation to read from the script?
Oh, my
if you
God.
are a guy like Cohen.
Oh, my God. He's saying that the prosecutors are suborning perjury from all of the witnesses. That is just sick. That is so twisted, and I don't believe anybody picked up on that particular aspect of it. Obviously, Donald Trump has lied and lied and lied and lied, and keeps moving the goalposts about deals in Russia and how long they went on, and transcripts and being alone and blah blah blah. But I mean,
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So when he said that, the Russians were hacking, and he knew it, and he was getting help from Russia, and he knew it. He's so busy, though, he doesn't know he's getting help from Russia, but he knew to stand up on a stage and ask Russia for their help, which, by the way, that day they give, because that's the day they start hacking Hillary Clinton's emails. And he's on Air Force One campaign. He's on Air Force One, and he's president, and he takes the time out of his busy, busy day to lie about Donald Trump Jr.'s Trump Tower meeting 3 times. It's about adoption. And I'm supposed to believe Rudy. Now, Neil Katyal, who was our former Solicitor General. Now, a Solicitor General is somebody who argues in front of the Supreme Court on behalf of the American government. And he said, you know what? It's time to just start an investigation. Congress's proper role is to look at all the other things that Trump did. And it's not that impeachment will succeed, that the articles will be drafted, but it is time for them to do the investigation.
You take all of this together, and it really underscores the need for a serious congressional investigation using impeachment, not prejudging the outcome and saying anyone should be impeached, but everyone in this country needs to know the answers to these problems. Some are within Mueller's jurisdiction because they're criminal, but others are not, and it is squarely Congress's constitutional obligation.
Why not wait until the Mueller report comes out? See what's in there, and then see what else you need to do.
Well, I certainly think, first of all, we don't know how long that could be. I mean, it could be next month, but Mueller is famous for not leaking. So the rush is, right now, we have allegations that the president is engaged in, has been engaged in serious wrongdoing. And as long as the questions can be asked by Congress in a way that doesn't interfere with the Mueller investigation, I think like an episode like tonight really demonstrates why Congress should be involved. After all, the BuzzFeed story is about lying to Congress. Who cares about that more than anyone? Congress. And so they're the ones who should be, yes, absolutely. And Congress it's perfectly appropriate and indeed part of their constitutional duties to investigate this, obviously to do so in a way respectful to law enforcement interests, to Mueller and the like, but it should and needs to be done.
It does need to be done. America needs to know whether or not the president is using his office to enrich himself, whether or not the president is violating the laws as he steals wages from people who he's calling back to work for the purpose of national security. We have a president meeting with Vladimir Putin and taking control of all the notes. We have an FBI investigation into whether the sitting president is a compromised Russian asset, as the New York Times reported a week ago. We have the denials and the distractions, including the shutting down of the government based on a very thin claim of national security. Congress has to protect all of these government workers. Congress has to protect people who are given protections from our government against deportation under the protected, temporary protected status, the DACA recipients, the 800,000 of them. Congress has to, and it's not just one question. Did Trump order Michael Cohen to lie to Congress? That is not the only question here. There are a million questions about Donald Trump and how he, you had all these, the guys from, what's the name of that phone company? The pink one. And they needed to get in front of Donald Trump for a merger they wanted. And so they figured that the best way to do it was to go book a bunch of rooms at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. And they're walking around the lobby with their, T-shirts on. And now, 500 rooms, the Middle East, 500 rooms were rented by a contingency of people from the Middle East to get in front of Donald Trump. I mean, talk about national security interests, talk about antitrust division. Now you got this Bill Barr guy, who obviously to me is probably the world's best lobbyist, who has a seat on the board or had a seat on the board of Time Warner for the Time Warner AT&T merger, which went through, and then our Justice Department under our antitrust laws blocked it. And now a guy who sat on the board of directors, who's already collected $1.73 million from this merger, is asking to be our attorney general and the boss of the antitrust division. Best lobby job ever. Best ever. Ever. I mean, we need to know what's going on. And Congress has a very big role to play. In fact, if you want to see something really, really great, in the homework today. I included that man, Neil Katyal, our former Solicitor General, and Michael Hayden, who was our national security advisor for like 6 years and ran the CIA for 3, got together and they wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post today. It's called Michael Hayden and Neil Katyal. The House should investigate impeaching Trump. It's only 3 pages. It's concise. It's to the point. It talks about the witness intimidation by threatening his father-in-law. It talks about saying Mueller is a partisan. And, one thing that's not in there, though, is Rudy Giuliani sitting there saying Mueller is suborning perjury, or that SDNY, the Attorney General of New York, whatever, that they're all suborning perjury. They're giving scripts to witnesses, and if they read them, they get probation, and if they don't, they go to the slammer. That's illegal. And somehow I don't think all of these people, from Mueller's team to the grand jury to SDNY, are all giving scripts to witnesses, and Trump is really telling the truth, and Rudy's really telling the truth. I mean, it's too bizarre because they change every day. The truth changes every day. And Giuliani most famously said, truth is not truth. So for guys who have no moral compass and don't believe truth is a definitive thing, a definable thing, a definite thing, truth is not truth, who are you going to believe? Law enforcement officials, prosecutors, or Rudy? We need testimony, and we need it now. Buy a stinking podcast.